Do we have to? Said Stitches. Yes, I think you'll find that we do, said Ollie. So you really think this is a good way to spend a Friday evening then? Complained the zombie, like a child told its bath night. Or a farmer, for that matter, the whinging, dung-covered bumpkins. And by that I mean a child having a bath, and not a child being told it's a farmer. We don't want any confusion now, do we? Not this early on. Blimey, imagine getting a 6-year-old farmer into the bath. It'd be easier to polish a rhino's horn, if you can find one, obviously. Not the horn, they're attached to the rhino. I meant the rhino. Oh, hang on. Right, I've been told to stop this meandering nonsense and get on with the story. Some people are so touchy. Well, yes, actually, as a matter of fact, I do, replied the half-vampire with a distinct air of superiority. And just to make my point, and in the spirit of fair play, of course, I'll bet you a month's wages that you can't think of a better alternative, he added, replacing the distinct air with one of a more definite nature. Stitches looked at his friend. Well, I wasn't given the chance, was I? He pointed a finger. But if I was, I'm sure I could have come up with something more constructive, and considerably more productive, actually. And a few other octaves as well as it goes. And since when do we get wages? OK then, said Ollie, sidestepping the salary-related question with all the agile grace of a Welsh outside half from the 1970s. Here's your opportunity. I'm going to give you the choice. You've got 1 minute to come up with a better alternative to tonight's cornucopia of delights. Our pleasure and relaxation for the next few hours is in your dusty mitts. And if I do come up with something, we'll go and do that instead, yes? Said Stitches, hopefully. He had a bag of pork scratchings in the kitchen that he planned to give to Flug, telling him it was a jigsaw of a pig. Ollie pondered the question for a moment. No. It would upset too many people, and by that I mean a few. Come on, mate, you know how much Mrs. Ladle looks forward to our visits, as does Ronnie, and you know very well that Flug would be beside himself if we cancelled. Oh, come off it, said the exasperated zombie. Flug doesn't know what town he's in, let alone whose house. He only comes along for the cakes and sweets anyway. Flug, Ronnie, called Ollie, bringing the conversation to a close. It's time to go. Within seconds, they could both hear the rumble of Flug's heavy footsteps as they beat a rhythmic tattoo on the upstairs landing. Then, as he got closer to the top of the stairs, his fervour increased, and such was the pounding that he was giving the floor, each pace that he took could be heard and felt throughout the entire building as he hurriedly made his way to the office. It was like being at the epicentre of a rapidly intensifying earthquake. Me coming, Ollie! Me! There then followed a crash of such tremendous force that it practically shook the foundations of not only the buildings in Skullenia, but those in the neighbouring town as well. Good grief, he's down again, said Stitches. I don't believe it. It's the same every week. You'd think he'd never seen a plate full of cakes before. Or his feet. Whilst possibly being a bit mean, that statement was based upon a very astute observation relating to Flug's mental capabilities, such as they were. For instance, if you showed him something, it doesn't matter what, removed it and then showed him the exact same something again straight away, he wouldn't have a clue that he was looking at the thing that he'd just been looking at. This was the very reason that they'd tried to keep him away from mirrors and shop windows. You didn't want to be standing on the other side of a pane of glass that Flug had just punched because he thought he was being followed by a big ugly thing that was dribbling and looked thick. Ollie was getting used to the idea, but it could be extremely frustrating if you were trying to make a point or attempting to get him to follow instructions. But then again, on the bright side, it was very handy when it came to, say, birthdays, for example. A few years back, before Ollie had taken up his tenure and money had been a bit tight, no less than 8 people had given Flug the same gift. They just stood in a line, proffered the reanimate birthday boy a parcel, which he duly opened, and told him to put it on a table behind him where it was immediately snaffled, quickly rewrapped, and passed to the next person to give to him. And whilst I know that sounds horrible, don't be too downhearted at this treatment of the big, lovable bag of bits. The prezzy in question was a 10-kilo lump of chocolate, and Flug wouldn't have noticed if the devil himself had handed it over in exchange for his soul, and then handed it to him again.